Hello and welcome back. We are diving deep today.
Hmm.
And honestly, I think this might be one of the most human topics we've ever tackled.
I would absolutely agree with that. It is certainly the most universal.
Absolutely. So, welcome to the Funeral Channel Network podcast. If you are listening to this, you are probably ready to look at something that most people try very, very hard to look away from. We are talking about grief.
Right. And it's funny, even just saying the word, people instinctively flinch. It's the thing we just don't want to discuss until we absolutely have to.
Exactly. It's like the elephant in the room that we're all pretending is a piece of furniture or something.
Okay.
But here is the thing that hit me when I was reading through the source material for today. Grief is this weird paradox.
A paradox? How so?
Well, think about it. It is the singular experience that every single human being shares. It doesn't matter if you were in a high-rise in New York City or a small village in Ghana or, high up in the Himalayas. If you love someone and they die, you feel that loss. The internal operating system, the heartbreak, the confusion, that biological drop in serotonin, that part is exactly the same for all of us.
That is true. The biology of it, the emotional impact of a bond being severed is universal. We all bleed the same way emotionally.
But, and here is the twist that we are really exploring today, the way we let that grief out, the output. It is radically different depending on where you were standing on the map.
Radically. And that is really our focus today. We are looking at a great stack of research and articles specifically titled Universal Mourning, Global Rituals of Remembrance and Healing.
Right.
And the mission here is really interesting. It is asking us to step outside of what I guess we could call the Western standard of grief.
Which is usually what? Keep it quiet, keep it private, maybe cry for a day, and then, get back to work.
To an extent, yes. In many Western societies, specifically in the last century or so, the dominant model is restraint. It is private. It is time-bound. You have the funeral, maybe a reception with some lukewarm coffee.
Oh, the lukewarm coffee.
Right. And then there is this unspoken societal expectation that the mourning phase should kind of fade quietly so everyone can get back to normal productivity.
Right. Moving on. We love that phrase, don't we? When are you going to move on?
We do. It implies this linear progression. You start sad, you get less sad, and then you're normal again.
Mm-hmm.
But the source material we are looking at today argues that this is actually the outlier in human history.
You're kidding.
No, it's a very, very weird way to handle death compared to the rest of the species.
Because the rest of the world gets loud.
They get loud, they get colorful, they use humor, they use long-term structure, and frankly, they use a lot more community involvement.
Mm.
The Western model tends to isolate the griever. The global model, it tends to swarm them in a good way.
It's fascinating. And before we get into the specific countries, because I really, really want to talk about these fantasy coffins in Ghana and the vultures in Tibet, I have to ask the big question that the text poses early on.
Okay.
Why do we need rituals at all?
It's the fundamental question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, if I'm sad, why can't I just cry in my bedroom and be done with it? Why do I need to light a candle or wear a specific color or hire a band? Isn't that all just performance?
It might look like performance from the outside, but the research suggests that ritual isn't just about tradition for tradition's sake. It serves a vital psychological function. The text argues that rituals give shape to grief.
Give shape to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that image. Because grief feels so formless. It feels like fog or smoke.
Exactly. When you experience a profound loss, you are in emotional chaos. It is unstructured pain. You lose your executive function. You literally don't know when to eat. You don't know how to talk to people. You can't make decisions. Rituals provide a container.
A container.
Yes. They provide a script when you don't know what to say or do.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Because when you are in that level of pain, making even the smallest decision is impossible. You don't want to decide what to wear or what to eat. You just want someone to tell you, stand here, say this, wear this.
Precisely. It outsources the executive function to the culture. And the sources highlight 4 key functions of these rituals. First, honoring the deceased. That's the obvious one.
Right.
Second, supporting the bereaved, the people left behind. Third, reinforcing community bonds. And this is a huge one. And fourth, providing continuity across generations.
That continuity piece feels huge.
Right.
It's about saying, we have done this before, we will survive this, and here is the path. It's like a map through the wilderness.
It removes the novelty of the horror. It says, you are not the first person to feel this, and you won't be the last. Here's the map that your ancestors used.
There was a note in there from some memorial educators, specifically from the funeral program site, that I thought was really empowering. They mentioned that understanding all these diverse practices isn't just an anthropology lesson.
It's not just trivia for a dinner party.
No, they said it helps families feel less constrained. Like, if the rigid, somber funeral doesn't fit your family or the person you lost, seeing how the rest of the world does it gives you, well, it gives you permission to personalize it.
That is the key takeaway, I think. It empowers personalization. You aren't stuck with a template that doesn't feel like you or your loved one. If the whole black suit and silence template feels suffocating, you can look at these other cultures and say, hey, wait a minute, there are other options on the menu.
Okay, so let's talk about that menu. Let's look at the templates that definitely break the mold of the somber black suit affair. I want to start with section 1 of our outline. Celebration, humor, and identity. Because my favorite discovery in this entire stack of reading was the Irish wake.
Ah, the Irish wake. It's legendary for a reason, and it is so often misunderstood.
It is. And on paper, to a very reserved person, it sounds like a complete contradiction. You have a dead body in the house, often in the parlor or the living room, but the room is full of storytelling, drinking, and this is the big one, laughter.
Yes, actual, genuine laughter.
Explain the psychology there. Is it disrespectful? Are they not sad? I mean, why are they laughing next to a corpse?
Not at all. It is arguably one of the most respectful things you can do. The source material explains that in the Irish tradition, the wake is a powerful coping mechanism. Traditionally, it's held in the home. The community gathers literally around the body. But the atmosphere isn't hushed silence. It is vocal. It can be boisterous.
It's loud.
It can be. But the aha moment here is realizing that the laughter doesn't diminish the grief. It honors the fullness of the life. If you are telling a funny story about the deceased, maybe a time they made a complete fool of themselves or a time they pulled a brilliant prank, you are bringing their personality back into the room.
You're keeping them alive in that moment.
Yeah.
You aren't just staring at a shell. You're remembering the spark. You're remembering the person, not the body.
Exactly. You are affirming that this person lived a rich, complex, and often hilarious life. And practically speaking, think about what it does for the immediate family. In the Western model, the family often sits alone in a formal room, maybe receiving a few awkward whispers of, sorry for your loss.
Yeah, and you have to respond to each one, which is just draining.
In the Irish model,
They are surrounded.
they are surrounded, they are fed, people are talking to them, not just at them. It transforms grief from this solitary, isolating thing where you are sitting alone in a room crying into a shared experience. The burden is literally distributed across the room.
I love that image.
Yeah.
Distributed grief. It's too heavy for one person or one family to carry, so the village comes in and everyone takes a little bit of the weight.
That is the essence of it. And there is an old belief mentioned in some of the deeper reading that the noise and the light also serve to keep malevolent spirits away or to ensure the soul doesn't get lost on its journey. But psychologically, it keeps the despair away.
Right.
Silence is a vacuum where dark thoughts can grow. Noise, laughter, stories, clinking glasses. It pushes back the darkness.
It's a kind of defiance.
Yeah.
It's staring death in the face and saying, we are still here and we are still laughing and we're still telling his stories.
Precisely. It's a testament to the life that was lived.
Speaking of defying norms, let's hop over to Ghana. Because if the Irish bring the noise, the Ga people of Ghana bring the visual spectacle. We have to talk about the fantasy coffins.
This is one of the most visually striking examples in the entire text. It completely upends our idea of what a coffin should look like. It shatters it.
I looked up pictures of these while we were prepping, and they are incredible.
Yeah.
We aren't talking about a nice mahogany box with some brass handles. We are talking about coffins carved to look like a giant fish, or an airplane, or a chili pepper.
Or a running shoe, or a Coca-Cola bottle, or a massive crab or a hen, anything that represents the person.
Yes. So walk us through this. If I'm a fisherman in Ghana and I pass away, my family might bury me in a giant wooden salmon.
Essentially, yes. The local term is abebu adikai, which translates roughly to proverb boxes. The concept here is that the coffin should represent the deceased's profession, their passion, their status, or even a hope for their next life. It is a hyper-specific narrative of who they were.
It's the ultimate conversation piece. But it's also the ultimate ID card for the afterlife.
It is. But deeper than that, the analysis in our source material suggests this is about identity preservation. It is a powerful refusal to let death erase the person. In a standard Western funeral, the coffin is uniform. It's generic.
Right.
You can't tell who is inside just by looking at the box. It effectively anonymizes the dead. It makes them interchangeable.
That's a really good point. A billionaire and a pauper look pretty much the same in a standard rectangular box. It's like we're trying to smooth everything over and make everyone the same in death.
Exactly. But with a fantasy coffin, you are broadcasting to the entire community and in their belief system to the ancestors exactly who is arriving. Here comes the fisherman, here comes the pilot, here comes the mother who was the best farmer in the village and was famous for her chili peppers.
It's like wearing your name tag into the afterlife. A big three-dimensional artistic name tag.
And the atmosphere of the funeral matches the artwork. These are not quiet, somber events. They are large, vibrant communal gatherings. There's music, there's dancing, there's a huge procession. It is a celebration of a life lived, a life with a specific identity, rather than just a mourning of the loss. It's visual noise in the best way possible.
It seems like there is a common thread here already between the Irish wake and the Ghanaian funeral. It's this idea of action, active participation. We aren't just sitting there passively receiving condolences. We are telling stories, we are carving art, we are dancing.
Action is the antidote to helplessness. When you lose someone, you feel utterly helpless. There is nothing you can do. But if you can do something, build a coffin, tell a story, sing a song, you reclaim a little bit of agency in a situation that has stripped you of all of it.
And that leads us perfectly to the African-American tradition of the homegoing service.
Yeah.
Because that also focuses on celebration. But the root is a little different. It's rooted so deeply in faith.
Right. The term itself, homegoing, is so evocative. It doesn't say the end. It doesn't say funeral. It says going home. It reframes the entire event from the very start.
It frames it as a graduation or repatriation, a return.
Precisely. It implies a transition, a return to the Creator, a reunion with God. It fundamentally shifts the tone from tragedy to victory, even amidst the profound pain and sadness.
The sources mention that this tradition blends mourning with praise. It's not just about being sad that the person is gone, it's about being joyful for where they are going.
Yes. The key elements include music, often upbeat, powerful gospel music that fills the entire space, preaching that celebrates the life and the promise of heaven, and testimony from the congregation. But there's a crucial psychological release valve here.
What do you mean?
In a stiff, formal Western funeral, if you start to scream or wail or get overcome with emotion, people get uncomfortable. They might try to hush you or quiet you down.
Right. Pull yourself together, that horrible phrase.
In the homegoing tradition, that expression is expected. It is catharsis. The service is designed to provide emotional release. You are encouraged to cry, to shout, to sing, to get it out. It acknowledges that the pain is too big to be kept inside. It needs a voice.
And again, it reaffirms that community resilience. It feels like in all three of these examples, Ireland, Ghana, the U.S., the goal is to make sure the family knows, beyond a shadow of a doubt, we are still here, the person is gone, but the community remains. You are not alone.
That is the safety net. You fall, but you fall into the net of the community.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about the party, the noise, the celebration, but there is another way the world handles grief that I found really, really touching, and that is the refusal to say goodbye.
This is a crucial distinction from the Western model.
Absolutely. Section 2 of our deep dive is about the living dead, this idea of continuing bonds. Because in the West, we are obsessed with closure. We want to close the book. We want to say, okay, that chapter's done. Let's start a new one. But these cultures say, no, leave the book open. There's still a character in the story.
The concept of closure is actually quite modern and quite Western. Many cultures find the idea of severing the bond with the deceased to be traumatic, not healing. They prefer to maintain the relationship. They don't want to move on. They want to move forward with the person comes with them.
The biggest example of this, and probably the most famous one that people might have some familiarity with, is Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead.
Yes, and it is so important to clarify, especially for listeners who might only know it from movies like Coco or from Halloween decorations. This is not Halloween. It's not about being spooky. It's not about fear.
No, it's reunion.
It is a family reunion where some of the guests of honor happen to be deceased. The core belief is that once a year, for a short time, the veil between the worlds thins, and the dead can return to visit the living.
And the living have to prepare for them. This is what I love, the active preparation. It goes back to that idea of action. Talk to us about the ofrendas, the altars, because the source material went into great detail about the sensory aspects of this. It's not just visual.
The ofrenda is the centerpiece. It's an altar built in the home or sometimes at the gravesite. And every single item on it has a function. It's not just decoration, it's technology for connection.
Technology for connection. I like that.
You have marigolds, these bright orange flowers,
Yeah.
and pasuchi.
And they have a very distinct smell, right?
Yeah.
It's very pungent.
Very. The scent is believed to help guide the spirits home. It's a sensory beacon. It's an aromatic pathway.
Like a landing strip for the soul.
Exactly. Then you have the sugar skulls, which are often decorated and have names written on them, representing the individuality of the person. You have photos, and most importantly, you have their favorite foods and drinks.
So it's not symbolic food, it's the actual food.
It's the actual food. If your grandfather loved a specific brand of tequila and his wife's tamales, you put a shot of that tequila and a plate of fresh tamales on the altar for him. You put out a bottle of Coke for a child who loved it. It's an act of radical hospitality.
It's so hospitable. You're acting like a host. You aren't acting like a passive mourner. You're acting like a party planner for someone you love or excited to see.
That's the psychological benefit. By revisiting the grief annually and by actively hosting the deceased, you normalize remembrance. It becomes an ongoing relationship, not a past tense one.
And it tackles that fear, doesn't it?
It
I feel like the biggest fear people have after someone dies, after the initial shock wears off, is I'm going to forget them, or everyone else will forget them. The memory will fade.
That is a major source of anxiety in Western grief. We feel like if we stop crying, we are forgetting. We feel guilty if we have a good day or laugh at a joke. But Dia de los Muertos says, you don't have to be sad all the time to remember. You just need to show up on the day. You have a scheduled appointment to remember. It reduces the pressure to perform grief 204/7.
Love that. A scheduled appointment to remember. It compartmentalizes it in a really healthy way.
Yeah.
Now, Mexico does this annually. It's a huge festival. But looking at Japan, they take it to a whole other level. They do it daily.
Yes,
Mm.
this was a fascinating contrast in the text. In Japan, ancestral continuity is woven into the very fabric of the domestic routine. It's not a festival, it's breakfast.
This is the Butsudan, right?
It's a butsudan. It is a household altar, often a beautiful little wooden cabinet kept in the living room or a central part of the house. It contains the memorial tablets of ancestors, maybe some ashes, maybe photos. It's a permanent fixture in the home's architecture.
And what's the daily ritual? It's not a big elaborate ceremony every morning, is it?
No, it's quiet. It's subtle. Families make small offerings. A small bowl of freshly cooked rice from the family's meal, some tea, maybe a piece of fruit. They light incense, they might ring a small bell, and they might say a brief prayer or just say good morning or I'm leaving for work now.
It's so intimate. It's like they're still living in the house with you. You're making coffee for yourself and you pour a cup of tea for them.
They are, in a sense. The source material explains that this integrates remembrance into the mundane daily routine. Grief isn't something you go away to do at a cemetery once a year. It's right there next to the kitchen table, part of the rhythm of the day.
What does that do for the mourner psychologically? Does it make it harder to move on?
It reframes the whole idea of moving on. It offers comfort through continuity. It transforms the relationship. You aren't getting over the death. You are learning to live with the ancestor as a spiritual presence rather than a physical one. It's a lifelong relationship. It prevents that feeling of total, brutal severance.
It seems like it would make the house feel fuller, less empty, especially for someone living alone after a loss.
Absolutely. You are never truly alone in a house with a butsudan. You are living with your history. You are surrounded by your lineage.
Now, broadening this idea of connection, the source material touches on indigenous perspectives generally, specifically regarding the deep connection to the land.
This is a vital perspective to include in many indigenous cultures, and we have to be careful not to generalize too much, as there are thousands of distinct tribes and traditions. But a recurring theme is that grief isn't just an individual emotion. It is a collective responsibility, and it is inextricably tied to the place, to the land itself.
How so? What does that mean, tied to the land?
Well, in the Western view, grief is something happening inside my head, in my heart. It's a personal, internal experience. In many indigenous views, grief is an event that happens to the community and the environment. If your ancestors are literally part of the land, if their stories are in the rocks and rivers, and you are part of that same land, then death is just a returning. The body goes back to the earth it came from.
So the rituals, the drumming, the chanting, the ceremonial fires, they aren't just for the comfort of the living.
They are, but they're also for restoration. They're often about restoring harmony to the community and the cosmos.
Harmony between who?
Between the living, the dead, and the natural world. Western grief is often about my loss. Indigenous grief is often about our balance. The community gathers to ensure the spirit travels well, that the family is supported, and that the community itself remains whole and in right relationship with nature.
It's so grounding. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It grounds the grief in the earth itself. It makes it feel less like a personal mental health crisis and more like a natural season, like winter.
It does. It removes the neurosis of the individual trying to fix their feelings and places the process in a much larger, sturdier container, the whole of nature itself.
Okay, speaking of containers, we have talked about partying and we have talked about altars. But sometimes when you are grieving, you don't want a party. And you don't have the energy to build an altar. You just want someone to tell you exactly what to do with your hands and your time because you feel like you're falling apart.
Right. You need structure. You need a timeline. You need rules.
And section 3 of our deep dive is about that. Structure, time, and impermanence. This is the how-to guide of grieving. And the undisputed champion of structure here seems to be Judaism.
Judaism provides an incredibly robust, detailed framework for grief. If you are the kind of person who needs rules to feel safe, this is the model. The source material highlights Shiva as a prime example of a psychological safety net.
Break down Shiva for us. I've heard the term sitting Shiva. What does it actually mean in practice?
Shiva is the 7-day period immediately following the burial. The immediate family, spouse, children, parents, siblings, stays home. They do not work. They do not run errands. They essentially drop out of the world for a week. They literally sit low, often on low stools or even the floor, symbolizing their low spirits.
And they cover the mirrors, right? Why is that?
Yes, often mirrors in the house are covered. The traditional explanation is to remove vanity. You aren't worrying about how you look or presenting a brave face to the world. You are focused entirely inward on the loss. There's no performance.
And what do they do for 7 days? Just sit there.
They mourn. But here's the genius of the structure. The community comes to them. The door is unlocked during certain hours. Visitors come to offer comfort. They bring food, so the family doesn't have to think about cooking. But, and this is the part that blows my mind, the mourner does not play host.
That's huge.
It's massive. In fact, tradition dictates that you don't speak to the mourner until they speak to you first. You just sit with them in their silence. You offer the gift of presence, not platitudes.
That is such a relief. I feel like in modern Western funerals, the widow or the bereaved child is often running around getting people drinks, playing hostess, making sure everyone else is okay.
Which is utterly exhausting. It's performative wellness at the worst possible time. Shiva flips that entirely. The community serves the mourner. The mourner is relieved of all social obligations. They're given permission to just fall apart. And they do it in a safe, held space where people will catch them.
And it doesn't just stop after 7 days, right?
Yeah.
The text mentioned yard site.
Right. Judaism acknowledges that grief evolves. It has stages. You have the intense 7 days of Shiva. Then you have the 30 days, the Shaloshim, where you gradually re-enter society but abstain from celebrations. For a parent, the mourning period extends for 11 months. And then you have the yard site, which is the annual anniversary of the death marked by lighting a candle.
It's a timeline.
Yeah.
It's a step-down program for grief. It gives you a roadmap.
It is. It prevents isolation because you know there are these community checkpoints. It provides clear boundaries for the chaos. You know, okay, I am in this phase now. It's okay to feel this way. Next, I will be in that phase. It gives the brain something concrete to hold on to when everything else feels slippery. And it validates that you should still be grieving at day 30 or month 11. It normalizes the long tail of grief.
That is so valuable, just knowing there is a map.
Now, moving east again, let's talk about Buddhism, because they also have a timeline. But the philosophy behind it is very, very different. It's less about holding on to the timeline and more about, well, realizing there is nothing to hold on to.
Mindfulness and the cycle, yes. In the Buddhist tradition, the core belief is that death is a transition, not an end. But unlike the continuing bonds we talked about in Mexico and Japan, Buddhism emphasizes impermanence, Yannicka.
So letting go, is that
Okay.
the idea? In a way, it's about accepting that everything changes. Everything is in flux. The rituals, the chanting, the meditation, the merit-making are designed to help the spirit of deceased move on to the next rebirth, and just as importantly, to help the living accept the reality of loss without clinging.
What is merit-making? That term came up in the source and it sounded almost transactional.
It can sound that way, but it's deeply spiritual. It's the idea of doing good deeds, donating to monks, feeding the poor, releasing captive animals, praying, and dedicating the positive spiritual energy or merit to the deceased. You are generating good karma on their behalf to help them in their journey.
That's incredibly empowering. Instead of just feeling sad and helpless, You are doing good in the world. You are active. It's like you are helping them pack for their next trip.
Exactly. It gives the mourner a job, a purpose. And like Judaism, there is a timeline. Memorial services often happen at key intervals like 7 days, 49 days, and 100 days after the death.
Why 49 days? That seems very specific.
In many Buddhist traditions, 49 days is considered the length of the intermediate state, the bardo, the period between death and rebirth. It's seen as a confusing, liminal time for the spirit. So that period is intense with prayer and ritual to guide the spirit through the bardo to a good rebirth.
And the comfort for the living comes from where? Is it the structure?
It's the framing. The comfort comes from framing the loss within the natural cycle of existence, samsara. It prevents the mourner from thinking, why is this happening to me? And helps them see, this happens to everyone. It is the nature of things. It stops the grief from consuming you indefinitely because you realize that clinging to the grief is just another form of attachment, and attachment is the source of suffering.
The nature of things.
Yeah.
That is a perfect segue to the final example in this section, and honestly, this is the one that stopped me in my tracks. We have to talk about the Tibetan sky burial.
Yes. This is often the most radical concept for Western listeners to absorb. It challenges every instinct we have about preserving and protecting the body after death.
It is intense. So for those who don't know, describe the ritual. And maybe a warning for the listeners, this is graphic.
It is. In a traditional Tibetan sky burial, the body of the deceased is taken to a designated site high in the mountains, a charnel ground. A body breaker, a holy person, a rojapa prepares the body. This often involves cutting the body to facilitate consumption, and then is offered to vultures.
Vultures, large scavenging birds. The body is left for them to consume.
Yes.
Okay, so my initial Western brain reaction is shock. It feels violent. Or disrespectful, like you're throwing the person away.
Yeah.
But the source material explains that the intent, the philosophy, is the complete opposite.
It is the ultimate act of generosity. You have to understand the environment and the philosophy. First, the environment. The ground in much of Tibet is frozen permafrost. It's too hard to dig a grave. And there aren't enough trees for a cremation fire to be sustainable. So returning the body to nature via birds is a practical solution.
But it's deeply spiritual, too. It's not just waste disposal.
Deeply. It is based on the Buddhist concept of compassion for all living beings. The body is just a vessel. The spirit has left. The person is gone. So, by feeding the vultures, you are performing one last act of charity. You are sustaining other life with your physical form. It's a final gift.
One last act of charity.
Yep.
That changes the whole perspective. It's not about abandoning the body. It's about using it for good.
And it forces a radical acceptance of impermanence. You cannot deny the reality of death when you watch a sky burial. It strips away all the denial, the embalming, the makeup, the watertight caskets. It says, we are biology. We are flesh and bone. We come from nature and we return to nature.
It aligns death with nature rather than with fear. It's brutal, but it's honest. It's beautiful in its own way.
Precisely. It's returning the elements to the elements without ego. The ultimate letting go.
Wow. Okay, so we have covered a lot of ground. We've been to Ireland, Ghana, Mexico, Japan, Tibet. We've seen parties. We've seen quiet meditation. We've seen vultures.
It is a very wide spectrum of human expression.
But in section 4, our synthesis. I want to try to pull this all together, because despite the fact that one group is drinking Guinness and another is lighting incense, are there common threads? Is there a common human blueprint underneath it all?
Absolutely. When you strip away the specific cultural clothing of the ritual, the skeleton is the same. The human needs that these rituals are meeting are identical.
What are the bones? What's the skeleton?
First, remembrance through symbolism, whether it's a sugar skull, a fish coffin, a lit candle, or a torn piece of cloth on a mourner's lapel. We need symbols. We need physical objects to anchor our abstract feelings. Words are often not enough.
Okay, symbolism. That makes sense.
Second, community support. This is the big one. None of these rituals are meant to be done alone. The Irish have the wake, the Jews have Shiva, the Ghanaians have the public dance. Grief is a team sport.
Grief is a team sport. I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
That feels like the biggest lesson for us in the individualistic West.
It is. We try to privatize grief, and it makes us sick. These cultures socialize grief, and it helps heal them.
Okay, what's the third bone?
Ritualized expression. You have to do something. You cry, you sing, you build, you pray, you feed the birds. You don't just sit and think and ruminate. Action breaks the paralysis of grief.
And finally, the fourth one.
Meaning making. All of these rituals, in their own way, try to answer the question, does this life and this death have meaning? And the answer is always, resoundingly, yes. It matters. The person mattered.
That is the key takeaway for me. Grief is not meant to be endured in silence or alone.
It's just not how we're wired.
So let's pivot to the listener, because most of our listeners probably aren't going to have a sky burial, and they might not be part of a community that sits Shiva. How do we apply this wisdom in our modern, often fragmented lives?
The beauty of living now is that we have access to all these ideas, and modern families are already blending traditions, sometimes without even realizing it. The experts, including the insights we saw from the funeral program site, emphasize that there is no one correct way to grieve.
So you can mix and match. You can create your own ritual.
To an extent, yes. It's about personalization. It's about stealing the principles, not necessarily the specific practices.
Okay, give me some examples. How do I apply the Irish wake principle if I live in a condo in Chicago and my family is very reserved?
Well, maybe you are from a reserved background, but you love the idea of the noise and the stories. You could host a celebratory gathering a month or two after the funeral once the initial shock is over, rent a pub or a hall or just open your house, and you put it on the invite. No sad faces, no condolences. Come with your favorite funny story about Dave.
I love that. You set the tone, or the Japanese altar idea.
Exactly. You don't need to be Buddhist to create a memory space in your home. It can be a small shelf with a photo, a candle, maybe a memento like their watch or their reading glasses. A quiet place where you can just say hi to them in the morning while you drink your coffee.
It creates that continuing bond. It acknowledges they are still part of your life, just in a different way.
Or borrowing from the Jewish tradition of time. If you feel completely overwhelmed, maybe you just tell your close friends and family, I need a week. I'm taking a Shiva week for myself. I need you to bring me food, but I don't want to host you. I'm not answering emails. You can claim that time.
That's so powerful. It's about setting boundaries and asking for what you actually need.
The source material puts it perfectly. Meaningful remembrance is most healing when it reflects authentic values rather than just checking boxes of convention. If the convention doesn't work for you, for your family, for the person you lost, change it.
Now, we do need to add a small but important caveat here about respect.
Yes. The line between cultural appropriation and appreciation, it's a critical one.
Right. We aren't saying you should dress up in traditional Mexican attire and build a giant ofrenda if you have no connection to the culture and don't understand the spiritual weight of it.
Exactly. It's about drawing inspiration to honor your own beliefs rather than copying rituals as a costume. It's about taking the principle, I want to feel connected, or I want to celebrate their identity, and finding a way to express that which feels true to you and your life.
It's a difference between stealing a ritual and learning from its wisdom.
Well put.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's really been a journey.
It has, around the world and through some of the deepest human emotions.
We started with the idea that grief is a universal paradox. We feel it the same, but we show it so differently. We've seen that you can laugh at a funeral in Ireland, and it's profoundly healing. You can build a fantasy coffin in Ghana to say, this is who I was. You can feed the birds in Tibet to say, I am part of nature.
And you can light a candle in Japan every morning to say, I still love you.
The closing thesis from our source material really stuck with me. It said something like, these rituals reveal a shared truth. Love does not end with death. Grief is not a problem to solve, but a relationship to carry forward.
That is the shift. That's the whole thing right there. We stop trying to solve grief like it's a broken pipe we need to fix. We start tending to it like it's a garden. It requires attention season after season. It changes, but it's always there.
I love that. So here is our provocative closing thought for you, the listener.
Yeah.
We want you to mull on this.
If you were to design a ritual that truly represented your life and how you want to be remembered, what would it look like?
Would it be a quiet meditation in the woods? A raucous party with your favorite 80s playlist? A strict 7-day retreat for your family? Or maybe something totally new that only you could imagine?
The source material suggests we have more permission to be creative, to be authentic than we think.
You do. You have permission to make it yours.
Absolutely.
Thank you for diving deep with us today. It's a heavy topic, but hopefully you feel a little lighter knowing how many ways there are to carry the weight.
Indeed. Take care of yourselves.
We'll see you next time.